Very much, Mr. Agnello, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here speaking to you today. Just a very short presentation from me. I'll give you an overview of some of the work that Visit Britain is doing in respect of the ISODE project and how it's developing into the Europe for All service that Ivor Ambrose described to us earlier on. As far as I see it, Europe for All and ISODE is a fusion of information on accessibility of tourism products and the capture, communication and marketing of this tourism information. Very quickly, a little bit about Visit Britain, and I won't dwell for long on this. I could just use the quote that Ivor made just a few moments ago. We're a top-performing tourism marketing organisation. Now, unlike Tourism Flanders, our principal role is to market, and we have two distinct parts to this marketing role. We market England to the British and Britain around the world in order to build the value of tourism in Britain, to increase visits, increase spend throughout the country and throughout the year. The role of product development is undertaken by the English regions within England and within the national tourism offices in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. So it's very important that Visit Britain builds partnerships in order to undertake its work effectively. As I'm sure you're well aware, tourism is a very important industry to the UK as it is throughout Europe. Maybe just pull your attention to the statistic at the bottom of this slide. The greatest increase in our overseas visitors is from those aged 65 plus, so referring again to the ageing population. Now, over recent years, there's been a significant shift in the marketing activity that Visit Britain undertakes. And whilst we still use traditional media and engage with the travel trade both in the UK and overseas, there's now a much greater emphasis on our online marketing activity. And this has enabled us, through customer relationship management that Rob mentioned, to get to know our customers a lot better. And we currently have just under 7 million active customer contacts. We're also providing functionality, together with our partners, to not just inspire people to visit Britain, but to allow them to book their visits to Britain online. Now, quality is key to Visit Britain, and we believe that to sustain and to grow visitor numbers, we must offer a quality experience. So we oversee assessment schemes, not just for accommodation and attractions, but also in respect of accessibility. Ivor mentioned earlier on the National Accessible Scheme. It was first established in 1993 by what was then the English Tourist Board, together with industry groups, and it's been revised a couple of times in 2002 and 2005. And now it includes not just mobility, but also hearing and visual impairments. It caters for the changing customer expectations, and we have made reference to the disability discrimination legislation that was mentioned earlier on today. So just very briefly, the National Accessibility Scheme covers four levels of mobility impairment plus an exemplary level, 2 levels for hearing impairment and 2 levels for visual impairment. Like the schemes that exist elsewhere in Europe, we have trained expert assessors that undertake the National Accessibility Scheme inspections. And they make their assessments on a high number of criteria, which at the end come out with a rating. Now, an assessment can take several hours, and like in Flanders, there's a cost to participants. And currently we have about 500 accommodation businesses that have an NAS rating. So if we have an established scheme, why is ISODE and the Europe for All service important to Visit Britain? Well, as I briefly described, the National Accessible Scheme has fixed criteria, is extensive and is expert assessment, and it gives a classification at the end of it. And in a way, you could liken it to a Rolls-Royce. It's sort of designed to meet every user's needs, but in a way how Greet described it, at the top level, there are very few accommodation businesses that can actually meet the criteria. So we believe that the work that we've done with the ISODE project and the Europe for All service is actually complementary to the National Accessible Scheme. And by working with tourism businesses adopting the ISODE Level 1, as Ivor described in his presentation, The Asante and the Europe for All service will allow the customer to access descriptive rather than prescriptive information, information that's been self-assessed, and therefore we can potentially allow customers to judge a large number of accommodation businesses and places to visit, which they can judge for themselves whether they're accessible or not. So in a way we could liken this to the Mini. Not quite as many bells and whistles as the Rolls-Royce, but hopefully you'll see a lot of them around. I mentioned earlier on that older visitors to Britain are our fastest growing sector, and we believe that Asante and the Europe for All service will be of great benefit to this particular sector. And as you can see on the screen now, some figures from some of Visit Britain's overseas markets and how they're going to grow over the next few years. The global ageing population has already been highlighted today and is well documented. And you can see the example here that in a few years' time in France, the number of people over 55 will jump from 25% to 33% of the population. As we've already seen, this is a segment that has a high propensity to travel, and as they get older, their access needs will increase, and not least if they have grandchildren in tow. So as a National Tourism Office, we must provide them with the information that they need to choose Britain, because if we don't, we'll lose these visitors.